Dillian Whyte vs Alexander Povetkin on August 22nd is the first big fight in the heavyweight division in the pandemic era, forcing the fight to be held at the Matchroom HQ in the UK in their Fight Camp series. In this video, 10 things to watch for the fight between the WBC interim champion Whyte and longtime contender Alexander Povetkin. We'll start with the Brit before moving to the Russian, 4 things apiece, and then 2 questions about this fight that the pandemic raises. And with that in mind, buckle up. Let's go. Number 1. How will Dillian Whyte approach this fight from a strategy perspective? Up until the split with Mark Tibbs, I was convinced we'd see a performance where Whyte would look to utilise some movement, use the ring, and box on the back foot in spots, as he did in the Chisora rematch in the Rivas fight. But this change of trainer to Xavier Miller, it has made me think Whyte will be more aggressive and less safety first. After all, he has been preaching a maxim of maximum violence in recent months and has even had t-shirts made. I don't expect him to be reckless, but I do expect him to look to land an authoritative jab early, and off the back of that, look to unfurl right hands and left hooks. And Whyte will probably have taken notice of the slow start that Alexander Povetkin had against Michael Hunter. That was back in December 2019, and no doubt he will be looking to take advantage and catch him cold if he can. Previously in the Chisora rematch, Whyte did hurt Chisora early, but he didn't pounce. But I do expect there will be more of a killer instinct this time around if he does have his man hurt. And like many of Whyte's fights, the left hook is going to be a key weapon. And with the left hook being also one of Povetkin's best punches too, it could make for some interesting moments, especially if they're both throwing at the same time. Even at 40, Povetkin has good hand speed, especially early in a fight. Number 2. Part of Dillian Whyte's success in this fight will be dictated by the shape that he comes in. In his last fight against Mariusz Wach, he weighed a career heaviest 271 pounds. That was a contributing factor in what was a relatively speaking poor showing from Whyte, who had a far more competitive fight with Wach than would have been the case if he had been in shape. Through his career, Whyte has looked good anywhere from the mid-40s to the high 250s, but coming in on the trimmer side for a nimble Povetkin is advisable, and judging from recent shots of Whyte from his training camp in Portugal, Whyte is likely coming in career best condition or something approaching that. And let's face it, after labouring at times in the Wach fight, Whyte will want to make a statement. He's well aware Joshua knocked Povetkin out in 7 rounds, so he will likely want to better that if he can. But a win is a win, and coming in better shape sets him up well to perform to his potential. Number 3. There's been a lot going on for Dillian Whyte in this training camp, so will distraction prove to be a negative for the 32-year-old? Remembering, Whyte has been training and living in Portugal for months ahead of the fight. He was there over the initial lockdown period, and he was getting his name out and opinion out at every opportunity. Then there was the back and forth with Tyson Fury, he split with Mark Tibbs, and subsequently he received criticism from fans for the way that he handled that split with Tibbs, bringing in a lawyer to let Tibbs know that his services were no longer required. On top of that, Whyte manages fighters like Fabio Wardley and Alan Babbage, so he's been heavily involved with their careers, their fights, the next steps, and Babbage has been confirmed in Whyte's undercard, and Wardley recently fighting on Matchroom's Fight Camp first card. So the point I'm trying to illustrate here is Whyte has had a lot of external factors eating away at his time and focus. So with his new trainer Xavier Miller, has he been able to prepare the best that he can, staying focused, dialed in the way that he needs to be, while also trying to continue building rapport with Miller, who he did work with in 2019 ahead of the Wach fight. Number 4. Dillian Whyte has taken a series of calculated risks in recent years, having seen off the likes of Robert Helenius, Oscar Rivas, Joseph Parker and Derek Chisora. Alexander Povetkin is another good contender level fight, with the Russian generally regarded as a top 10 fighter by most observers. But is this going to be the backfire moment for Whyte, who has had some shaky moments in recent fights? It is another calculated risk, Whyte betting on himself to see off the past prime 40-year-old Alexander Povetkin and make a lucrative payday on pay-per-view while waiting for a title shot. Whyte, the younger, fresher fighter, is the favourite for many reasons, but it's not without risk, and it wouldn't be shocking if he did lose. It's just not the result many are expecting. Number 5. Alexander Povetkin is in the twilight of his career at 40 years old and has definitely seen better days. So how much does he have left in the tank? It's a major question heading into this fight, and him being past prime is the main reason that he is the underdog. Povetkin from 6 or 7 years ago probably would be a hot favourite to win the fight, but it's not 2013 or 2014, it's 2020. And for the Russian, should he win, it does represent a shortcut to another heavyweight title shot, so it is all on the line for the Russian, and he shouldn't lack for motivation. Povetkin has also previously signalled that his time in the sport is limited, so should he lose, he probably will retire, but should he win, he would extend his career and fight another day. And as seen in the Michael Hunter fight in 2019, Povetkin is not completely shot, and he can still be extremely competitive in a high-level fight. Number 6. Unlike the Hunter fight, Alexander Povetkin will want a better start. Having been caught cold in the first round by an aggressive Hunter and looking in real trouble for a few moments, he will want to flip the script and have more moments of success like he did early in the Joshua fight in 2018. Arguably, when he's fresh, it's his best chance of inflicting more damage, as his record in recent years shows that if it goes past 6 rounds, he's likely not to get a knockout. I think it's more probable, based on his recent fights, that a Povetkin win is more likely to come on points than a knockout. But if a stoppage comes, it's probably likely to come early when he's fresh. But in terms of getting a decision, he's going to need to rack up some clear rounds, and he needs to ensure a good start to the fight in that regard. But if it does end up coming down to a pure boxing match rather than a rough and ready brawl, Povetkin will probably fancy his chances in that sort of fight. Number 7. Alexander Povetkin has power in both hands, and his hooks are especially dangerous, hurting and stopping various top fighters over the years. Like Whyte, Povetkin will be looking for the left hook in particular, and it's very likely we will see them trading hooks at the same time in spots. Which raises the question, if Povetkin can beat Whyte to the punch, can he hurt Whyte? Can he make Whyte put away some of his own shots, fearing what's coming back at him? If Povetkin can't get Dillian Whyte's respect early on, make Whyte think twice about letting his power shots go, then the Russian could well get worn down and taken out as he did against Anthony Joshua, a fight he was having success in early on. Against Hughie Fury, Povetkin was able to dictate the pace of that fight, work when he wanted to, and even as he tired, he was able to pick up some clear rounds. Some of that came down to Povetkin making Fury second guess a lot of what he wanted to do. So if he can replicate some of that success from that fight, he'll be on a good footing. However, unlike Hughie Fury, if Whyte finds himself getting bogged down and contained to an extent, he will likely change tack and show more urgency, and likely make Povetkin work more than he wants to. Number 8. Povetkin's management of his energy reserves will be key in this fight, as his gas tank often starts to approach empty in the second half of fights. If Povetkin can weather the early rounds without exerting too much energy, he can still perform in the later rounds as he did against Michael Hunter and Hughie Fury, although clearly he won't be as sharp or have as much snap in his punches by then. With Dillian Whyte looking like he's coming in somewhere approaching career best shape, Povetkin will need to be ready to go 12 rounds, but more importantly, he should be prepared to do it at a solid pace, as Whyte will likely want to make Povetkin work more than he otherwise would want to, which is in short bursts as opposed to a concerted 3-minute effort in every round. Number 9. One thing that could help Povetkin is the lack of a crowd. Whyte, being a regular headliner, is now used to big home crowds urging him on, cheering him on, applauding every punch, and the lack of that noise and energy, it could certainly benefit Povetkin, if only in a small way. And as we know in the heavyweight division, sometimes small margins dictate the winner of fights. Some fighters often say they need a crowd, so we will see if this sort of curveball of no crowd during the pandemic throws up and has any influence in this fight. Number 10. This fight between Whyte and Povetkin, it's a bit of a test case in the United Kingdom for how a big heavyweight fight will do on pay-per-view. The result could well influence the next steps for both Matchroom and Queensberry, with both promotional outlets holding off scheduling other big fights. The move by Whyte to be the first, it could actually well benefit his profile in general too, as he's taking a chance on the pay-per-view market at a time of uncertainty, when others are sitting on the sidelines. His willingness to do so, it could apply pressure on other top names to deliver what the fans want, competitive fights. So that concludes this video. Who are you picking in this fight and why?